Hello, future educators. My name is Nicholas Eady, and I will be a 7th through 12th science teacher. I hope you find this video informative and useful in your future teaching careers. Today we'll be learning how to implement Strategy 71 from Jody Rice's 120 Content Strategies for English Language Learners. Teach reading in reverse. Now, under a typical reading activity, it would go something like this. I, as a teacher, would attempt to activate my students' background knowledge on the topic. I would have the students read the text. The students would answer questions from the text. Students and I would discuss information in the text. Finally, students and I would try to apply that information to real life or past learning. As its name implies, reading in reverse flips this approach around. Now, I want you to imagine that you're back in 9th grade. You're taking physics. Go on, use your imagination. We're about to start a unit on Newton's 3 laws of motion. And we'll be reading chapter 4.3 from the digital textbook.
Okay class, today we're going to learn about one of my most favorite things in all of physics, Newton's 3 laws of motion. All right. I want you to open your Chromebooks to chapter 4.3, Newton's laws. We're going to read about his 3 laws of motion, but we're not going to do it in the traditional way. Today we're going to try something different. It's called reading in reverse. So what I want everyone to do right now is to scroll down to the bottom of the chapter where we get to key terms. Let's talk about some of these key terms. Inertia. Who here has heard of inertia? All right, you've heard that a body in rest stays in rest and a body in motion stays in motion. Okay, let's read the definition. The property of a body that resists any change to its uniform motion equivalent to its mass. Can you think of any time where you've resisted a change to your motion? Getting out of bed in the morning? Exactly. Now, equivalent to its mass. All right. Has anyone ever tried to push a heavy object? Is it easier to push a lighter object or a heavier object? All right. It's easier to push the lighter object. So the more mass something has, the more it's going to resist a change in its motion. Okay. What about friction? Has anyone heard of friction before? You've heard of friction burns. Okay, what is a friction burn? When something rubs up against your skin? That's right. That has to do when two bodies are in contact. What about uniform motion? Okay, we've heard of motion. It's moving around, right? What about uniform? Where else have we heard uniform? Okay, the military wears uniform. Now, all right, now let's scroll up to the top of the chapter. And let's look at the headings and subheadings. Now it says the first subheading is the first law, inertia. So we talked about inertia a little bit. So under this heading, we probably are going to learn about the first law having to do with inertia. Okay, it says it's the first law of motion. All right, and we have a picture. Can anyone identify with that picture? That's right, we've all been in the car. When someone slams on the brakes, what happens? The car slows down, we move forward, right? And we're pushed up against that seatbelt. Probably a good idea that guy's wearing a seatbelt. All right. Looks like we're going to learn a little bit more about inertia. And we have a video to watch. Awesome. So when you're reading this, you can pause and watch the video. It's only about 2 minutes long. Now the next subheading says the second law, force and acceleration. All right, that means the second law probably has something to do with those two things, correct? Right. All right, we have a formula. That's probably going to be important. You're going to want to write that down in your journals when you get to it. And we've got more formulas. Okay. Now, a lot of this is just deriving what the second law of motion is. I want you to pay attention to that F equals M times A. That's going to be important. And we're going to have 2 videos that you get to watch that will help you understand this section of the reading. The third law, the last of 3, because we said there are 3 laws of motion, is symmetry in forces. Now, we talked about what symmetry is, correct? All right. It's when things are the same on both sides. All right. And we have a picture. Who here has ever gone swimming? All right. What's she doing? Now, normally at the end of a chapter, we would try to answer some of the questions that are in the chapter, but there are no questions at the end of this chapter. So maybe we can look at the key points and try to develop questions from those key points. For example, the first key point is Newton's 3 laws of physics are the basis for mechanics. How can we turn that into a question? That's right. What are the basis for mechanics? Newton's 3 laws. Or Newton's 3 laws of physics are the basis for what? Mechanics. Okay. The next one. The first law states that a body at rest will stay at rest. Okay, that sounds familiar. We talked about that already. Until an external force acts upon it, and that body in motion will remain in motion at a constant velocity until acted on by a net external force. How can we turn that into a question? Well, I know that's a long sentence, so maybe we can divide it up. All right. The first law states that a body at rest will blank. Stay at rest. That's right. Body in motion will remain in motion until, that's right, acted on by a net external force. So now that we've had a little background into what the 3 laws are going to be about, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to read through the text. Take notes in your journal, and when we're all done, we'll discuss further the 3 laws of motion. Ready? Get to it.
Welcome back to pretending you're a 9th grade physics student. Let's review what we just did. In a typical reading assignment, the students read the text, then they answer questions from the text. A class discussion of the text follows. Finally, the students and the teacher try to apply the content to their real lives. This way of conducting reading puts English language learners at a disadvantage, since it begins with the most cognitively demanding task, reading the academic text. In the reading in reverse model, we first try to connect the content to the students' lives or past learning. Then we discuss the text using clues such as headings, subheadings, figures, and pictures to infer what the text may be about. Third, we answer questions about the text or try to generate questions if they don't exist. It doesn't matter if the students know the correct answers at this point, but it primes them for the reading. Finally, the students read the text. Now, questions and discussions should still happen after the reading, but now the students can compare their previous thinking and answers to what they think after reading the text. This strategy provides an important scaffold of context to the academic tasks the students are about to read. And like all scaffolds, it can be removed as the students learn to adopt this technique on their own. ELLs and non-ELLs are no longer trying to tackle the most cognitively demanding task without any context or relevance to their daily lives or past teaching. This strategy can be adopted to a culturally responsive teaching environment by choosing text that is culturally relevant to the students whenever possible. ELLs can be further helped by providing L1 translations of key terms or list of cognates in their L1. Any grade or content area can make use of this strategy. It's just a matter of choosing the appropriate text. Reading in verse can be supplemented by other reading comprehension strategies such as graphic organizers, KWL charts, hot potato, or oral reading. Whatever you feel is appropriate to the students in the content area. So in summation, reading text can be the most difficult part of any assignment involving reading. When you ask your ELLs to read the text without background or context, they're going to struggle and possibly tune out of the lesson. Reading in reverse gets your students prepared for the hardest part of the assignment. It can be adopted for all grade levels. Culturally relevant text can be used to further engage the students. And finally, the technique can be supplemented with other reading comprehension strategies. Thank you for your time. I am Nicholas Eady, and I hope you have found this video useful.